Ever since Jeff Brom came to Louisville, it's been a team that's been competitive year in and year out. And honestly, I think this has been just such a fun era. And even though this is a team going through quite a bit of transition, it's still going to be a fun year. I don't know how competitive this team was going to be, but I do know that it's going to be fun along the way. And today we take a deep dive into the Louisville Cardinals and see what we should expect from Brom's team in 2025. Now, 2024 was a 9-4 season. You saw a number of interesting things develop. Tyler Shuck obviously stayed healthy for most of the year and put together some really impressive numbers. Ja'Cory Brooks was a big reason why he had success, but I also think you return quite a few pieces this year that make you excited for what could be. Now, Brom's offense is going to be exciting. They bring in Miller Moss to run the show. We'll obviously dive more into him and talk about his story, but this is a group that I think has done really good in the transfer portal. They've done a really good job of identifying talent that they can nurture and they can develop. I don't think a lot of people are able to do that, but Jeff Brom has done a very good job at getting guys to compete at a high level. Now, the roster changes, like we said, Tyler Shuck is off to the NFL, Ja'Cory Brooks to the NFL. You lose a handful of players of the transfer portal on offense. Donald Chaney's gone. You don't really feel like he moves the meter, though, at that position. You lose Jamari Johnson to Oregon. So you're feeling like maybe you lost something there. Jimmy Callaway went to Tulane. I think there were a couple pieces that you were a little bummed to lose, but overall, it feels like you're still in a pretty good position. Defensively, you obviously knew that Quincy Riley, MJ Griffin, and Corey Thornton were going to be gone. So that's not anything surprising, but it's still hard to see some of those guys leave. You do bring in quite a bit of talent once again. Miller Moss is the name that everybody is going to pay attention to. His time at USC obviously was full of ups and downs. Again, we'll dive more into him in a little bit. Cleve Lubin comes in from Coastal Carolina. That's someone who can make a major impact on this defense. Trayshawn Hurry was a super underrated addition from San Jose State. I'm kind of surprised that we're not talking more about him. Other guys like Devon Mitchell could make an impact at that tight end position. Dakari Collins is someone that, again, if he can find the right fit in this offense, you feel like he's going to be able to be really exciting for this team. Again, it's just going to come down to how good of a fit is he actually. Those are big questions with the transfer portal, is how well do some of these guys fit? How much are they going to be able to take advantage of their opportunities, and how are they going to contribute at a high level? Now let's dive into Miller Moss. Miller Moss, when he was coming into his first year as a starter, replacing Caleb Williams is not going to be easy for anyone. Just, you're not going to replicate that talent, and not that Miller Moss was going to and didn't want to. It was more of Miller Moss just isn't Caleb Williams. He's just not, one, as talented, but also he just doesn't play the same game. And I think that it's hard when you have such a good quarterback sometimes at a position like, or a place like USC, that you just kind of put some expectations of, yeah, even though you're not Caleb, I still expect big things from you. And obviously that's just part of the process. But overall, like, Miller Moss is not going to be an elite quarterback in terms of talent, but I think that he was better than a lot of people give him credit for. I think he did some really good things, and he was just in a really tough situation. Going to Louisville made so much sense. When he transferred to Louisville, I felt like that was just the perfect fit for him. If anybody's going to get the most out of him, to me, it's going to be Jeff Brom, a guy who's kind of flying under the radar, has the ability to make big plays with his arm. He is someone that I can see having a really fun year. And with the guys he gets to throw to, I don't see why it shouldn't be a fun year. Now, Brady Allen had a really strong spring. He is someone that is going to be pushing Miller Moss for time, but Miller Moss is going to get the majority of, he's going to be the starter. Brady Allen is going to be maybe in some packages. Jeff Brom always has some things up his sleeve, but Miller Moss is the guy. Brady Allen is definitely going to be a fun player to keep an eye on for the future. After that is where you maybe have some questions about where you have depth or who is going to step up, though I feel like you're in a pretty good position in terms of talent. You feel pretty good about the guys you have coming back. If anything, though, the rushing attack is in a great place. The depth that they have, the talent they have is phenomenal. Isaac Brown stepped up in a big way and exploded onto the scene last year. Second team all ACC selection. He is someone that's ready to have another big year, and teams are going to have to worry about what he can do. Behind him is also going to be a problem. So if you feel like we got Isaac Brown figured out, well, Duke Watson is coming in. Keywan Brown is going to be another guy to keep an eye on. You have way too many options if you're Louisville. So running the football should be a success for Louisville once again. And this is a group that was one of the better offenses in college football last year, both throwing, both running. As long as Miller Moss meets expectations at worst, you're feeling like this offense is going to be in great hands. The rushing attack is going to be in a good place because you have Brown and Watson. Those are guys that are going to make things happen. It's just a matter of when that happens. And while Miller Moss gets acclimated with his new wide receivers, you might have to rely on that rushing attack a little bit more. Though Miller Moss is someone that is going to have a really interesting opportunity. And I think that he could have a big year that reminds people that he's a talented player that can, in the right system, make things happen. And the guys that he gets to throw to will also help him tremendously. Now, getting Colin Lacey back was a huge return for this team, and I think that he is set to have a really fun year in 2025. I think that Chris Bell could also do the same. And when you're looking at a new quarterback coming in to this system, you're looking for guys to step up, and you have Bell and Lacey coming back for that. You bring in Dakari Collins. Now, there probably are some questions about, is his best full football behind him, or does he have something in the tank where he can step up and shine in a big way? Now, Bell had 737 yards last year. Lacey was having a good year, only played in 5 games though. So you're thinking that if he plays a full year, that'll be really exciting. Collins is someone that, again, is extremely talented, has the tools to do everything, but will he be able to do it? And you're coming to a Jeff Brom system that hopefully helps him. If not, Trayshawn Hurry is someone that can step up in a big way. This is a guy who kind of was in the Nick Nash shadow. And if you follow San Jose State football, you know what I'm talking about. Nick Nash was an absolute stud. And for the most part, he was their primary source of offense and sometimes only source of offense. Trayshawn Hurry had a really good year as the second option. Hits the transfer portal. I thought he was going to stay, and then late in the process, he hits the portal, comes to Louisville, and I really like this fit for him. A guy who not a lot of people know, not a lot of people know what to expect from him. Someone who could step in as a starter, but definitely as part of the rotation and showcase his abilities, and a reason why, if not for Nick Nash, he would be a bigger name in the portal. Other guys that could step up are Bobby Golden, who comes in from Akron. Again, when you take an Akron guy, it's probably not going to be a success right off the bat, but you're betting on some of those traits that they have. And Bobby Golden is someone who has been pushing for a time. Antonio Meeks, same thing. So you're looking for certain guys that stay healthy, mostly Colin Lacey. You're looking for other guys to step up, Dakari Collins and Trayshawn Hurry. If you get that, your passing attack is going to be in a good place. And this is a passing attack that did a lot of good things with Tyler Shuck and Ja'Cory Brooks. Both of them are gone. So if Miller Moss and whoever else is going to catch the ball step up, then you're feeling like this is going to be a really fun offense once again. The tight end position will also be part of that. Jaleel Skinner comes back. He is someone that I think they're expecting some bigger things from in 2025. You also, like I mentioned before, get Devon Mitchell. Kind of a surprise that he leaves Oklahoma. And he does come to Louisville, obviously, and he is someone that should be able to make some big plays for this offense. Jacob Stewart is Trayshawn Hurry's former teammate at San Jose State. So overall, there's good depth at this position. You're just trying to identify who is that guy that will step up, or do we have multiple tight ends that we have to utilize? either because we have, really good depth, really good talent at that position, or the wide receiver position maybe isn't living up to expectations like we once thought. Now, part of that also is going to be the guys up front. The offensive line lost a couple of pieces that you thought were maybe a bummer to lose, but I think this is a position that had pretty good depth, and they also bring in transfers that are going to make life a little bit easier. The tackle positions are in a really good place. Trevante Sylvester, a former tight end when he came to Houston out of high school, has really transitioned well to his new role on the offensive line. He has the athleticism, a big frame that, put with that athleticism is really exciting, has the ability to adapt to certain things, especially early on when he was trying to learn the position. He found that his athleticism helped him win a lot of situations because he had the ability to recover. He didn't have to worry about, do I have the mobility to get to a certain point, or if I get beat, do I have the athleticism to recover from that loss? Opposite of him, Rasheed Miller is coming back. Behind him is McKalen Pounders. So those are two guys that I think will have a really fun battle in practices. We just won't see that a ton. And I think you're at the tackle position, you're in a really good place with the depth you have, the talent you have. But the starters in Miller and Sylvester are really where everything starts. And I think that they're going to have a really fun year. And it gives Miller Moss a little bit of peace of mind knowing that his two tackles are going to make life a little bit easier for him. The guys on the edge won't have as easy of a time getting to him, and he'll feel like he's in a pretty good position to make plays. Now, the interior offensive line is kind of in the same place in terms of talent. You have a trio of guys that are in a good place. Lance Robinson is the interesting one for me. I'm curious to see how he will do in this offense. I think that he has plenty of ability, and paired with Sylvester on that left side makes him such an intriguing player. And especially with the running backs we talked about, you feel like if they're going to have success, it's going to be because the guys on the interior have a lot of push. But Lance Robinson, to me, is a really fun player to watch, and someone who has the ability to make a lot of exciting things happen. Now, the offensive line is going to, like I said, play a big role in this offense's success. And I think overall they did a pretty good job last year. Now, with this offense, this coaching staff knows how to give their offensive line a little bit of a break. They're not asking them to protect for a long period of time every single passing play. You're going to run screens. You're going to run some quick plays. But also you're going to ask your offensive line to dominate up front at times. And I think that this is a group that, especially in the ACC, is looking to surprise some people. And I think that they have the ability to have another successful year despite some of the new faces that they bring in that maybe don't have the chemistry with some of those other players that you see here. The defense is kind of the group that gets forgotten in a way because Jeff Brom is just such a prominent figure in this program, and his offense is obviously what people talk about, but his defense has the potential to be really exciting. They just have a lot of new faces that are going to step up in a big way. Like I said, you lose multiple starters in the secondary. You also lose multiple guys up front that are going to require you to find new faces, find new players to step up, and you bring in some players from the transfer portal that could do that. Now, losing Ashton Gelati was always going to hurt, but replacing him with a guy like Wesley Bailey could be a solid replacement. You lose a number of key players, but someone like Wesley Bailey is, he's done things at Rutgers that make him really exciting, and he has the ability to make big plays. It's just going to be in a new system, and that might take some time to figure things out, but at the same time, sometimes you can rely on that talent and let it just carry you to the point where you finally get comfortable. But Wesley Bailey is an extremely talented player. I thought that was a great addition by this staff. And there's good depth behind him as well. Justin Beatles is an underrated player from New Mexico State. We talked about Clev Lubman before. We'll see if he plays defensive end, if he plays the Leo position. Adonijah Green is someone who could have a big year. Again, a lot of these guys are going to step into bigger roles. And a guy like Green, who had 12 tackles last year, 3 tackles for loss, he is someone that in a bigger role could be more productive. The edge positions are in a good place. The edge positions you don't feel super concerned about in terms of who's going to replace the talent. But I think where you might have more concerns, and honestly, every team felt like they probably were a little concerned with the interior defensive line. That's where you feel like Louisville has to prove themselves. Now, Rene Conga is someone who comes back with plenty of experience, but again, can he take on a bigger role? 20 tackles last year, 3 tackles for loss, 2.5 sacks. You also return Jordan Garrett, 22 tackles, 4 tackles, 2.5 sacks last year for this team. You bring in Denzel Lowry from Old Dominion. That was a nice addition. A lot of these additions by Jeff Brom are just, you feel like they're sneaky good additions, especially when they come from the group of 5. And Denzel Lowry kind of fits that description. He is someone that I don't think a lot of people knew, and I don't think a lot of people still know who he is, but he is someone that could have a really big impact on this team. Jerry Lawson from Abilene Christian, same thing. Maybe even guys like Sidley Brown and Kendrick Gilbert are guys that will step up, but overall, this was just a solid transfer portal class once again. And really just the question comes down to are they going to be able to step up and be productive? Those are the biggest questions, but I really like what they've done. I really like this defensive line in terms of what they could do. It's kind of a group that's going to fly under the radar. I think people are expecting a step back when you lose guys like Ashton Gelati and Desmond Tell, but you're looking at a group that has the ability to, or at least has the opportunity to show that they can handle this new transition, this new role that each of them are in. And that'll be really interesting to see if they can step up to that challenge. Behind them is a group that feels pretty set overall. When you look at Stanquan Clark and TJ Quinn, those are the two two leading tacklers from 2024. 82 tackles for TJ Quinn, 4 tackles for loss, 1.5 sacks. Clark, 76 tackles, 8 tackles for loss, 2 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles. Those are 2 leaders of your defense, and with so much uncertainty in front of you and behind you, having those 2 guys back almost settles some of those nerves if you're this defensive staff. If you're guys that are coming in for the first time to Louisville's program, guys like Khalid Perry are going to need some time to transition. They're going to need some time to figure out this system, and the same thing with the guys up front and behind him. Those are going to be guys that need some time to get acclimated. TJ Capers is experienced from this group last year, but he is looking to be more productive and be more part of this rotation. I think that you have lots of potential in this group behind Clark and Quinn, but you maybe don't have the depth that you would desire to feel comfortable going into the year. That being said, you have 2 starters that, even if they're not on the field, will make an impact. They'll get the guys up front lined up. They'll get the guys in the secondary up to speed. And that's probably a position that a lot of teams don't get to be in because they don't return productive and experienced players like that. But overall, you should feel pretty good for the time being in terms of who your leadership is going to be and how they're going to get everybody ready to go up front. Now, the secondary, like I mentioned before, does go through a transition. It's going to take some time for them to sort things out, especially when you lose certain players. When you lose a Quincy Riley, Corey Thornton, and Jay Griffin, that's going to hurt. That's going to do some damage to your group. But you do bring in players that could make an impact. You do return some players that are ready to potentially take a step in their production. Antonio Watts had a solid year last year. 51 tackles, 7 tackles for loss, 4 passes defended. We'll see how he can thrive at that, star nickel position. Everybody has a different name for it. You also see a guy like D'Angelo Hutchinson coming back after a 52 tackle year. So he is someone that gives you some stability, even with some of the new guys that are coming in to their new roles or just coming into the program for the first time. The new faces, Raymond Mosby, JoJo Evans, Rodney Johnson. Now, there's probably going to be plenty of push for all of them. You know, Corey Gordon is a transfer from Baylor that is going to push for time at safety. Jabari Mack is someone who's going to push for time at corner out of Jacksonville State. Same with Justin Agu. Joseph Jefferson II is another transfer that could play a role in the secondary as well. So while you do have a lot of new faces, you also bring in good competition. You bring in guys that are hungry and ready to prove that they can compete at this level, that they can step in and play a big role for this defense. So it's a group that definitely is going to need some time. And honestly, the pass defense really needs to get better. That was a group that struggled last year for Louisville. And if you're going to have the same success that you did in 2024, you need to find ways to slow teams down better than you did. It starts up front and you're going through a transition. It also is going to be on that secondary. So the new faces must be better. The new faces must figure things out. And it might take some time, but at least you have new faces that are going to push each other to get better. Now, Louisville is still in a really good place in terms of winning football games or potentially winning football games. And that's where we'll dive into the schedule. Now, the schedule is going to be interesting regardless of who they're going to play, because you're going to have challenges just with some of the natural teams that you're going to get. Now, the over-under is set at 8.5. And the beginning of the year does you some really good favors because you're going to need it for the second half. Now, Eastern Kentucky is going to be a win. The James Madison game could be tough. Now, JMU, the quarterback situation there is kind of up in the air, so you don't necessarily know what that's going to be. Then you get a bye week before you play Bowling Green, so you should be 3-0. Pitt is a team that started off hot last year but cooled off immensely in the second half. That's a game that Louisville also should win. It's a winnable game. Virginia is looking to bounce back this year, and they brought in a ton of transfers that could help tremendously. But again, that's a winnable game. So you could be sitting 5-0. You get a bye week before you head to Miami. That'll be a tough one. Hosting Boston College, we don't really know what Boston College is going to be. We'll definitely know at this point in the season. Then you go to Virginia Tech, a team that, depending on how things go, might not have a head coach. We'll see. Then you host Cal. Again, you're seeing winnable games on this schedule. It's just that then the last 3 games are pretty rough. Clemson, at SMU, and Kentucky. Now, Kentucky is not exactly, I think, what a lot of people expect them to be, but they are looking to bounce back, and it's a rivalry game. Clemson and SMU were the 2 teams in the ACC championship, and both made it to the college football playoff. So that's a tough second half of the season. That's a tough ending stretch, and that's what makes things challenging. It could be, I think the nice thing is that you have the beginning of the season to kind of sort things out, see who's going to be your starters, and especially with that defense, get everyone acclimated and up to speed. It's going to take some time. And when you face Miami on October 17th, you better have your stuff together, especially if you are 5-0 and people are questioning the legitimacy of your 5-0. You need to have things ready to go, or Miami is going to be a real tough game. But overall, we know that Jeff Brom has a few things up his sleeve. You know that he has identified talent in the past that made it work, and he expects to do that again. This could be a team that surprises people in certain capacities, but there are also some concerns with this team as well. That being said, it should still be a fan base that's optimistic about this year, and if certain pieces are able to step up, you feel like they're in a good place. It feels like the offense is going to be just fine. I don't think that there should be any concerns about where this team is headed offensively. The defense is just going to have a little bit of time to get everything up to speed. But overall, should still be a fun year, should be an exciting time if you're a Louisville fan. And that's what makes this team really intriguing, is that they still have plenty of excitement despite the turnover. And at worst, they're still going to put up some points on the scoreboard.